Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. I hope all of you are doing fantastic. Today we're going back to one goated RPG in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. You may be asking yourself, why now? I mean, this is a great game, but why now? Well, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have not caught up on the news, there's been rumors of an Oblivion remake remaster. And if you haven't heard of all that, allow me to brief you. So a couple of months ago, we covered it here on the channel how there was a Reddit post on Reddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors that a project codenamed Alter was being worked on at Virtuos Games Paris. And it was there they were doing what's called a remake remaster of Oblivion that's going to be hosted within Unreal Engine 5. Now, naturally, with posts on Reddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors, there's that coin toss, 50-50. This person could be as right as they could be wrong. You get excited about the idea of it, but then you move on. A couple of weeks later, we get this massive leak from Xbox themselves, where a bunch of court documents were released that weren't redacted, all at Xbox's hand, and in that was a release schedule of Bethesda games. And it dates back to July of 2020, as that's when it was originally made. So it's also possible some of the games on this list don't exist. But one consistency among the rumor mill was, again, Oblivion, which here on this release schedule was called a remaster. So whether it's a remaster or a remake is really up in the air right now. But I thought at the top of a new year, this would be the perfect time to fire up Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion and see what's the haps. What could change to make this already great game even better? What feels dated? What could be fixed in a remake of any kind? And what do we want to stay? Well, I'm going to get into all of that based off my recent playthrough of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below. Fire away on that. And if you like the occasional re-review with mostly focus on day one reviews, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. I want to start off with tone. There's a strong sense of tone in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. The way its world is captured, to me, is absolutely stunning. I'm not really a fantasy fan, as many of you know. I prefer sci-fi, like I'm a huge Fallout fan, but I would say I'm more of an Elder Scrolls fan than a fantasy fan. And the reason being is Elder Scrolls manages to capture all of the fantasy elements, you know, the magic, the medieval armor, without the hoity-toity, strange way of speaking and whatnot, where everyone's poetic. That sort of stuff I can leave to the wayside. So it feels like Elder Scrolls is rooted in this very specific place in fantasy that I enjoy, but it's also being able to really connect with and touch the world, you know, where I'm wandering in this absolute downpour in these marshes. You can barely see, you're looking around, there's fog starting to creep in, and all of a sudden on the horizon, you just see a little cave. You're like, okay, well, that's shelter, and there's probably something in there. Let's go ahead and check it out. And in there's a bunch of goblins nestled away, and they're all being led by a necromancer at the end of it all. Or seeing the cotton candy sky above the Imperial City, all the way out from a hilltop that are miles and miles and miles away from the city. That is part of the gameplay experience. Or climbing up a hill and just seeing the sun peeking over the edge of a hill, and as I reach the top of it, I'm greeted with a wonderful view and my next destination. Oblivion is just a master of the tone as well as the gameplay pacing moment to moment, and it's because it allows you to have that downtime while also being able to seek out what's next, so you can enjoy its world while planning your next move. But also, this tone in this world is beautifully captured through the score of Jeremy Soule, who composed the likes of many Elder Scrolls games, being Morrowind, Skyrim, Oblivion, of course. He also composed my favorite game of all time, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And you can hear a lot of KOTOR here in Oblivion, but there is a comforting sense to this soundtrack, where you hear the plucking of strings as you're hanging out within an inn, or the air instruments that kick in that give this game a sense of scale and scope and breadth, and then the bombastic sense of the soundtrack when music kicks in. It's dun 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 dun. Pardon me for ruining the soundtrack for you, because I certainly can't imitate it well with my mouth, but that is what makes the game so special. It's that combination of sound, look, and feel all at once. And I hope that remains firmly intact, because the world is the brightest character here in Oblivion, absolutely. It's also impressive to see on a technological level as citizens have their day and night cycles. They go to bed at night. During the day, they're doing a job. The world feels alive and lived in, and I've always been appreciative of that. What makes the world feel kind of fake, I would say, is the amount of voice acting in it. Now, Oblivion is fully voiced, but it's across, like, 8 people. It's a product of its time, right? Bethesda Game Studios was an extremely small team at this time, especially for AAA standards. They were doing something special, and there is a unique charm to how many reused voice actors and actresses there are. And this was a problem all the way up into Skyrim, but again, their games were so magnificent that no one really cared. But in Fallout 4, it's where they finally started to diversify the voice cast, and it hasn't been a problem since, and Starfield being the most impressive example of that, where no one sounds the same. Whereas in Oblivion, everyone sounds the same, and it does strip away a bit of the character, right? What is a world without its population, and why is the population special if they all sound like the same 6 people? I love the voice acting there, and I do hope that they retain some of the original cast, but I wouldn't hate if some of the characters in the game got different voices. They all look different, they all have different names, they should sound different. I don't think I'm asking for too much here, but I do think some of the voice performances need a bit of an overhaul, minus key characters. Like, you can't have someone else do Lucien Lachance. You can't. You just, that man needs to stay menacing, all right? So, like, there are ones that need to stay, but there are others, more side characters, that need to start sounding different. I think dialogue is a part that could be kind of explored in an interesting way. I would like to see more of what I'm going to say as a character. I think that one thing Oblivion carried over from Morrowind that's interesting is your sense of conversation comes through topic selection. So instead of giving your thoughts on something, oftentimes you're selecting, mission or contract, and you don't get that sense of what my character is really saying to this other character for them to respond. There's times where, say, during the Dark Brotherhood quest line, you could say, like, the Night Mother has come for you or something along those lines. That stuff is totally cool and gives a sense of characterization, or you can stay silent. There's great characterization in the dialogue in Oblivion. I just think a lot of the conversations are like rumors, contract, Night Mother, like they're topics instead of real questions. And it works. You can figure out what you're going to be talking about, but it's more about what they're saying to you rather than what you as a character are saying to them. So I wonder if there's a window there to maybe open up what the dialogue actually is. I think the most touchy part of the game that, by the way, Sky Oblivion is handling elegantly, it looks like, is the dungeons. So as I mentioned earlier, Bethesda Game Studios was a very small team at the time of making Oblivion. This is key to recall because the dungeons were all made by one person. There's like 200 plus. So yeah, one person making all these dungeons. Pretty daunting task. What does this result in? It results in a repetitious design. It also results in getting lost often because every part of the cave or alien ruins look the same. They just all look the same. And so what really defines them is the loot. I found a really cool armor set and sword in one of the dungeons, and that's what makes it stand apart. But much like I talked about the characterization of Oblivion, one thing it struggles to have in its interiors, beyond, by the way, its major cities, where I feel like there's enough visual diversity there to make each one of those cities unique enough. But when it comes to when you're going into these dungeons, they all look and feel the same, and it strips some of the character from the location. It all boils down to a name. I was talking to a buddy about that, and he's like, I'm sure you have the game memorized from front to back. And I go, it's actually kind of hard to memorize Oblivion from front to back because everything looks the same, so you can't tell what's different from one cave versus another, and they're all sort of designed the same too. And that's because, again, it went down to one person who made an impressive amount of dungeons, but it definitely came at a cost. If there was one thing I would change on the visual front, it would be redecorating the interiors to ensure that these places all look and feel at least a little bit different. I'm not against, of course, the cave template having a set of decorations that are unique to the cave, but there has to be differences in what's on the wall, what's on the ground, something that I can look at and indicate as a player, this is the start of the dungeon, this is the end of the dungeon. So visually, I think there needs to be changes, but on a design front, I need a little bit more of that full circle design that Skyrim did so well. Oblivion has moments of that where you'll drop down and you'll be right by the entrance, but it's almost like if I'm not deliberately placed facing the entrance, I still get a little confused again because so many of these locations look the same. It really comes down to loot, and I think Oblivion does a great job at supplying you with unique weapons and armor. It's always super exciting to find that unique weapon or armor in an Elder Scrolls or Fallout game, but I think Oblivion, it hits especially well because of all the status effects that can be applied to the equipment in the game. So yeah, I think that dungeons definitely need an overhaul at this point in time if you're going to be re-releasing the game. As someone who loves Bethesda Game Studios, I'll love how they are because I understand it, but I think for a new player coming in, this should be something that's definitely accounted for. I think probably my favorite aspect of Oblivion in the terms of aging is the way the gameplay handles. I think it's the perfect balance between easy to approach for someone who's more casual, you know, your Skyrim, I guess, but also hardcore enough, kind of like Morrowind. It's just this beautiful hybrid. I think of attempts at hybrids in the past. One key example of that is Dragon Age Inquisition, right? It tried to do the mix of Dragon Age 2, the action combat, and Dragon Age Origins in the camera, in tactical awareness, in picking where your enemies are going to go. But it felt very much like it was just riding the middle and neutral area to appease fan bases rather than enhancing the gameplay and giving you more options as a player. At least that's how I received it. Where something like Oblivion manages to carry elements of both sides of the fence in a meaningful way, where, for example, you can swing away. It's an action game, and unlike in Morrowind where you needed to get your, say, short sword skill up, so then you would connect over time more often when you swung and you weren't just catching nothing but air, in Oblivion, when you swing, you connect with the enemy. There is that visual feedback of like, I'm swinging and I am hitting you, therefore I'm doing damage. That type of stuff is great, but the hardcore element kicks in with something like Morrowind again, where, well, every swing has to cost a little bit of stamina. And so you can swing away only so much, and you can do power swings only so much. Another hardcore element, it is Elder Scrolls. It has the unique skill system, level as you do, right? So as you jump around, you'll gain acrobatics as an example. And eventually you'll have learned enough where you need to meditate, think about what you've learned. I like that mixture of world building and leveling up, where it's like you lay down, you take a rest, you collect everything you've learned, and when you stand up, you can increase your attributes, you can increase your skills. And I like that Oblivion has more build crafting. This is something that I think is sorely overlooked for the game. Granted, I think its biggest problem is that it doesn't carry a lot of gameplay options like Skyrim does to fully utilize your build. It's like stealth, magic, warrior, pick your poison, right? And stealth can go a number of ways. Stealth melee with the Blade of Woe, for example, or stealth bow and arrow. You can have some options there, but it's not like Skyrim where you can have spell in one hand, mace in another. It's like, I'm a battle mage, or you can rock the heavy armor with that, and so on and so forth. There's more deep build crafting that I think goes on in Skyrim, but I think Oblivion gets overlooked in this department a bit for all the options it offers you, where you can become this godlike figure, but you do have some type of drawback to your character, which I've always preferred. And then there's excellent gameplay mechanics attached to it. I think of the spell crafting as something that is so phenomenal. Just being able to make your own absolute death ball is a great feeling. And it's one of the best perks about the Mage's Guild. You see, that's one thing that I think Oblivion gets right, is there's a real reason to be a part of all these factions. Sometimes story, sometimes gameplay. I think Mage's Guild provides good gameplay reasons. I think the arena, I know it's not a faction, but it's definitely one of the main storyline things you can do in Oblivion. Definitely gameplay. Meanwhile, I think Dark Brotherhood is all story. You get so many fun moments of interaction and creative ways to take down your targets, from loosening the bolts of a decoration in the house and making it look like an accidental death and collecting bonuses based on how you kill people, to, of course, one of my favorite quests in Oblivion, where you literally play Danganronpa and you are killing people as time goes on in this house we're all staying in. And as everyone's dropping like flies, it's that kind of whodunit sort of mystery. And so I just adore that. Like, Oblivion has some of the best quests. I also enjoy its main story. It has a sense of epicness. I think of the Battle of Kvatch. It's downpouring, and we're running around with a bunch of soldiers, and we're fighting off these enemies pouring out of the Oblivion gates. Well, speaking of which, a big part of the main story of Oblivion are those Oblivion gates. And it's definitely that part where the lack of visual diversity stands out the most, because this is another place that you can easily get lost in as you go up tower after tower, cross bridge after bridge, wander wasteland after wasteland. You can be in there for a while. And even if you were to pull out a guide if you felt you needed it, I don't know if it would help much because, again, with that lack of environmental diversity, it's really hard to get your bearings. This is something that I think drastically needs to be improved, that they're even going to just do a remaster here because it's just way too hard to oftentimes tell where you're at. So the Oblivion gates, I love the idea of them going in to the thick of it and closing them down and seeing a tangible impact on the world, because as you approach them, you can really feel like, oh, I'm going straight to hell right now. I love that stuff, right? But I also feel like they could do much better with them, less so in design, more so again in visuals. I also hope if they remake or remaster Oblivion that they include the DLC. I've actually, and I've talked about this before, not played much of Shivering Isles at all. I know this is widely regarded as one of Bethesda Game Studios' best DLCs and never played much of it. I don't know why, but now sure feels like a really good time, but knowing the remakes on the horizon, I want to see. So that's kind of one of my hopes, is that it's an all-encompassing package, including the horse armor. We have to have the horse armor. But I hope it leaves nothing behind and makes meaningful changes in ways that don't drastically alter the core of the game, while also bringing to light the best parts of it. Things like changes to environmental diversity, not overhauling the world and where locations are, but just changing how some places look to give them some distinction, changing how some characters sound to give them distinction. I think that's the one thing that Oblivion lacks all this time later: distinction. It is such a unique world with unique soundscapes and with great moments of exploration. It's just kind of let down by, you know, the time of which it was made in. So this is a great opportunity, and I look forward to seeing what they do with it. But these are my thoughts on Oblivion after yet another playthrough. I'm looking forward to seeing yours down below, so fire away. And with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.